Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ask TotalBiscuit Anything, episode 4. This is based on the AMA I did over on r/CynicalBrit on the 29th of September 2012. The questions have already been asked and answered, so the box is very much closed, but there were many, many questions indeed. So let's continue in the same vein with a question from Food that says, do you like any of your YouTube fan base at all? Oh, this is a great one to start with. Well, I like plenty of them. The problem is it's actually really difficult to show that. The people that leave comments on my videos have a tendency to let's just say they're a bit derpy. That's putting it kindly. When I see a stupid comment, I feel compelled to reply to it. It's the whole someone is wrong on the internet thing. I don't really like being lied about, and I don't like ignorance, nor do I like people fighting my battles for me. So at the moment I'm in a situation where I've at least temporarily come to the realization that it's a waste of time trying to deal with people like that, and I'd be happier if I just made more videos and played more video games instead. But consider how few of the total fanbase actually comments. So you get a 100,000 view video, and that might only receive about 1,000 comments, and that's not uniques either. That's more often than not a few hundred or so people arguing amongst themselves. Idiots are more likely to post a comment than smart people are. When I say I hate my fans, which is often in jest, it's the people who leave dumb comments that I'm really hating. It's the guys that went over to that Retsupre video I liked and started a dumb flame war. People like that really do make everyone look bad. And the terrible logic and copious amounts of misplaced butthurt, and I suppose that's a bad word to use, but I think it accurately describes what it was. I would describe butthurt as getting really upset over something dumb on the internet. And of course, there were the ridiculous accusations as well. Retsupre is bullying, which is basically slavery, said one person in his... I don't even know. What kind of crazy mental gymnastics are required to get there? I don't know, but I'm surprised they didn't break their backs while doing it. So because these people were too stupid and too immature to handle the fact that someone's stupid Minecraft mod about big-breasted blocky women got riffed on a video on the internet, I can't send traffic to RP anymore because it makes me look like an idiot. And I've addressed the idea that fans make me by association look stupid. And it's true, they do. So those are the kind of people that I really hate, and then there's the people that I meet at events and conventions, with the exception of that guy that's a dude, are you TotalBiscuit? While I was working. Some of you might remember this, some of you don't. I was commentating at the SOE booth, and as you might expect, I was wearing a headset, I was clearly talking, doing a presentation, I was on the PA and everything. It was obvious that I was commentating. And this guy just came right up to me and said, dude, are you TotalBiscuit? I'm like, guy, I shouldn't even have to explain that I'm working. It should be obvious, blindingly obvious. Who does that? Who does that? I don't know, but this guy did, so... yeah, and I like to believe that the majority of my fan base is just totally reasonable, normal human beings that I can talk to and have a cool conversation with without feeling uncomfortable and being creeped out or whatever. And in my experience, this is true. The people that I run into at events are almost always like this. Some of them are a little bit awkward, but hey, that's just how some people are, but they're all universally nice. Even the guy at MLG Raleigh that was holding up the sign that says the UK apologizes for TotalBiscuit, I went up and took a photo with him, and he was totally cool as well. Everyone's pretty much cool when they come out to an event like that, and that's awesome. I like to think that's how everybody really is, but it's really hard to judge that when the vocal minority is so loud, and YouTube comments just bring out the worst in people. I don't even know why. I would love to be able to figure it out. What is it about YouTube comments that make people act the fool? It's really hard to say, but it is a curious phenomenon. It's not something that I see in other forms of media. Maybe it's just because they don't have ready access to the ability to just spout their unthought-out opinion very quickly over the internet with no actual effect. And then, of course, there's the trolling culture where people they want to go out of their way to upset people, and that makes you a bit of a dick, quite frankly. Some people may think it makes them an arch supervillain, but in reality, all you're doing is posting a dumb comment and getting people a little bit annoyed over the internet. Well, congratulations, that's your biggest achievement. Well done. You are truly a paragon, or should I say a renegade. I think I'm coming to this realization that there is a split between the idea of fans and fandom. And fandom being D-U-M-B. And again, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before, but there are people that like your stuff, and they're okay with being called fans. They maybe even identify themselves as fans, but they don't go off the deep end. And then there are other people that really, really do, and it's insufferable. You know, I would rather not have any fans and just have viewers. And these guys, they either like what they like or they don't like what they don't like. They express that opinion one way or the other in a reasonable and sane manner, and then they just watch your next video, and they also realize, hey, it's a video on the internet. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. If it's a bad video, everybody makes bad videos every now and again. Everyone makes a video that is not quite up to snuff, and maybe it's just a video that you personally didn't like. But there's no reason to be a dick over it. There's no reason to start a vendetta over it. Start a campaign. Get out the pitchforks. There's absolutely no need to do that. They're only videos on the internet, and there'll be new ones tomorrow. So you didn't like this one, big deal. Go and have a look at another one. It's not exactly rocket science. I think the problem I have is, how do I express how grateful I am to people that watch my videos without wading into the comment section? Because people want that interaction, and yet I just can't. If I wade into the comment section, I will find idiots and horrible things will happen. And I like to think that because I thank everybody at the end of every single video, that's showing my appreciation for people that watch my stuff. I've often been accused of not caring about my fans, which is just, it's an annoying accusation, because what does that involve? Does that involve pandering to people? Because if that involves pandering to people and being dishonest, then I don't want to do it. I don't want a situation where I reward fanboyish behavior. I would prefer people to remain a little bit aloof and actually be a little bit critical all of the time. And once again, just realize it's just a video on the internet. Look at what happens when you talk about PewDiePie in a negative light, or TotalBiscuit, or some of the really, really popular Let's Players amongst the younger demographic. Look what happens when you do that. You get absolutely destroyed. That is the kind of behavior that I don't want to see from my fan base. And I think that's the kind of behavior that you get when you pander to them and you are constantly overly nice, disingenuously nice. It isn't down to being perceived as an asshole if you happen to not appreciate and worship every single nice comment that you ever get. It's more down to the fact that you just say, you're all great, you're all amazing. It's like, well, some of you aren't amazing. Thankfully, it's a minority, but some of you aren't amazing, and just constantly putting on this barrage of pandering is irritating, it's fake, I dislike it, and it encourages a overly zealous fanboyish attitude. And once that happens, you have a group of people that you cannot control, and people do not view your fan base in a positive light. They don't view mine in a positive light either, but I'll take mine 100 times out of 100 versus PewDiePie's or Yogscast or anything like that. And I think that you can whittle down some of that nonsense as long as you are just honest and real with the people that you are having watch your videos, and you don't just blindly claim, I love you all, and all this other fake nonsense. I don't think the kind of fan base that I really want is actually possible to acquire on YouTube, especially not when dealing with gaming, because inherently you are going to get a young audience in that. My demographic is higher than most. My primary is actually 18 to 24, followed by 25 to 34, and my tertiary demographic is 13 to 17. Now, the majority of gaming channels is 13 to 17. It depends on the game, but the vast majority of Let's Play channels, as well as COD commentary, 13 to 17. How do I know that? Because up until very recently, all channels had these demographics displayed by default, and it was very easy to find that information. Now YouTube has a feature where you can hide it, but previously it was very easy to tell what demographics were being served, and you could even figure it out without actually having that information, but it's blindingly obvious who these channels actually appeal to. And I think maybe as the gaming base gets older, if you continue to put out content that is interesting to older gamers, then you can get a better demographic. But it's still very difficult to do, especially when you create content like Terraria, which does have an appeal to younger people. And those people stick around the channel, and I appreciate them, but they are often the kind of people that will be leaving the dumb remarks and embarrassing people and making the fanbase look bad. So it is difficult to show appreciation. It really is. How do you show appreciation while simultaneously not encouraging bad behavior? Tricky, certainly. I've been wrestling with the concept for a great deal of time. Quick question by Ed Bluetooth, and the follow-up: would you ever hire somebody to edit for you to free up time and or sanity for yourself? And then someone said, I believe he has an editor. Now, this isn't actually true. I think maybe people got confused because I mentioned the word editor with the Half-Life stream, the Black Mesa stream thing that I put out. That was actually Zook's first attempt at editing together a highlight reel, and that was something that I had an idea for, thinking, well, is there a way to turn my streams into a more professional and hopefully amusing and easily absorbed format? Because those streams, like 4 hours of nothing worthwhile and maybe 5 minutes of worthwhile content. So can I edit that together? And I said, Zook, why don't you give it a shot? And unfortunately, it was not well received. Now, there's a variety of factors in why that wasn't well received, and it's difficult to know, and it's also very easy to overreact. When you get a lot of negativity to a piece of content that you think is good, then often you feel like you want to lash out at the people that did it. It's like, oh, it's pearls before swine kind of attitude. But I think with that, there were probably too many cuts, and it was difficult to see the context, and also the fact that there was a lot of negativity surrounding Black Mesa, and that's something that a lot of people have been looking forward to for a long time, so the natural fanboy reaction is, oh my god, you can't say this stuff, and things like that. But no, I edit all my material. Aside from that one video, I'm the one that edits everything. The problem is that using the format that I currently do, it would be impossible to have an outside editor that wasn't actually working in the office with me, because there are hundreds of gigabytes of footage produced every single day, and as a result, transferring those it's impossible. You can't do it. There's just too much data, so I would need somebody in this house in order to make that happen. What I would ideally do is I would hire an editor on office hours. I would do a bunch of commentary. I'd record everything to a large capacity SSD, or maybe a couple of large capacity SSDs, with the external mounts. And then I would pop those SSDs into an editing machine and then allow someone to do the editing for me there. And that would actually open up some interesting avenues to do a lot more heavily edited content that I just don't have time to do myself. And that may open up opportunities to do different kinds of series. But right now, it's not really a possibility, and we don't have the space to bring someone else into the office. So I think that it's going to have to wait until the business expands, and at the moment I'm just doing all my editing myself, and that does take up a reasonable amount of time. It depends on the video. Some stuff's really easy, like it syncs up completely, but there are often moments in WTF that I'll have to edit out, or there will be cuts and things like that because of crashes with the program, and that often happens with beta material, and you will see that, and I'll often mention it, but it can get a bit fiddly at times, but it's not all that difficult, especially not after you've taken a great deal of time to actually learn how to do it and do it on a daily basis, so it becomes second nature. Let's move on to what do you have in your pockets right now, says Jamie Sackville. Well, having pockets would involve me wearing trousers, which I am not at this time. That's one of the biggest perks of the job. This is why I don't understand why Yogscast would ever move into their own office suite. It's like, why? You can edit and commentate in your boxer shorts. How is that not a good thing? I mean, come on. I did year upon year of having to get up, get in for a 9-to-5 job in a suit or in a uniform, depending on which job I was doing, and you don't want to do that. When you are your own boss, you have the ability to sit there in your underoos and do whatever you like, and that's kind of awesome. That's the biggest benefit from being able to be your own boss, and I would never trade that for anything. That's probably the biggest perk of the job, quite frankly. So there you go. I like to view it as being eco-friendly. It means that less clothes have to be washed because less clothes get worn in the first place. So I am doing my part to reduce my carbon footprint. Here's one from Woven Marks. I've heard you mention you working at Game a few times, and you also started your own podcast and website. I'm just wondering what happened in between, or did you immediately jump from working at a retail store to podcasting? So I put together a timeline, and it goes something like this. So prior to 2004, this kind of overlaps here. Prior to 2004, and I can't really remember the exact dates, I worked on Ice Realm Radio and Planetside Radio. And when I say worked, I mean volunteered. There was no money involved in that whatsoever. So those two organizations were very much shoutcast radio stations, and I cut my teeth on that after I did Live 365, which was way before that. And Live 365 wasn't quite the same thing, and it's more interesting working on an organization that actually has a schedule, multiple DJs, and you have to present a show on a specific time frame. That teaches you a lot. Now, from 2002 to 2006, I was involved in De Montfort's radio station, which was Demon FM, and that is where I got most of my experience from. Now, I've got a little treat for you. Most people haven't heard this. I think I maybe played this once on WoW Radio. I actually have access to my first ever demo for this particular radio station. This is the demo that actually got me a show at about 3 o'clock in the morning, during the graveyard shift, on Demon FM. You might find this interesting because this is probably the oldest piece of content that I actually have on record for anything broadcast related. I don't have anything prior to this, and this was done over 10 years ago. So, yeah, just have a little listen.
This is John Bain live on Demon FM, bringing you Extremities, the music most people don't even know exists. What have we got up on the show tonight? We have new tracks from Dark Tranquillity from their new album, Damage Done. We have In Flames, Mr. Bungle, and various other strange and rather noisy bands. We have the usual Senseless Rambling and various other things. Continue listening if you want to know more. Anyway, what do we got up now? We've got a track by Dark Tranquillity. It's called Monochromatic Stains. It's from their new album, Damage Done. If you haven't heard Dark Tranquillity before, you might want to keep on listening. See what you think of it. This is John Bain on Demon FM, rambling senselessly down the microphone for your amusement. What do we got up next? We have a track by a band called Mr. Bungle. If you've never heard of Mr. Bungle, you may have heard of a guy called Mike Patton, ex-Faith No More frontman. Also in Phantomas and Tomahawk, and done a recent project with the Dillinger Escape Plan, somewhat of a travelling minstrel of the metal world. But his first band was Mr. Bungle. When he was age 14, he formed this rather odd, extremely weird band. Playing completely uncategorizable music, to be honest. I don't know, some of it sounds like ska, some of it sounds like rock, and some of it is just plain weird. Anyway, I'll play some for you now. This is probably the time where we should mention that Demon FM accepts no responsibility for any loss of sanity through listening to this music. So, if you are kind of in a sort of unstable mental state, you might want to switch off now. Anyway, this is Mr. Bungle, it's called Ars Moriendi.
Good lord. Now, the first accusation, oh my god, your voice was so different back then. Yeah, the funny thing is that I think when I acquired this accent was actually while I was down in Leicester, because I happened to live with a bunch of people that had some very interesting southern accents, and I pick up accents really quickly. Like, you may, over the next year, notice a slight American twang. In fact, you've probably been noticing it over the past couple of years. My accent continues to change, which is really weird. Most people have their accent defined at a very early age, but I think because I moved around so much, my accent never really got a chance to settle. Now, that accent right there is a northern accent. It's very much Newcastle crossed with Sunderland and Durham. And I think Durham was the biggest one because I lived very, very close to that for the majority of my comprehensive school years through to sixth form before I actually went through to the university. And that demo was recorded, I think, in the first fortnight of the actual university, so I hadn't had a chance to change my voice. But like, if you were to listen to the broadcasts from maybe the fourth year of Extremities, which was my extreme metal, I say extreme metal, it's laughable to say that from this perspective that I have now, but back then, it was interesting, alternative, heavy, some extreme, different genres of metal being mixed in. If you listen to the fourth year, you'll probably notice that my voice has changed yet again, and it is rather intriguing, to say the least. I'm still confused as to why it even happens to me. Whatever the case, yeah, that was my old demo. God, that is actually terrible. It's really, really bad. Unbelievably bad. Where's the enthusiasm? Where's the passion behind it? And why can't I get through a sentence without saying, I don't know what I'm saying? That's really bad in a pre-recorded demo. That is disgusting. I would never suggest that anybody do that, but, well, there you go. That was me 10 years ago, and it sounded bloody awful. Anyway, let's finish off the rest of this timeline. So 2005, I started working on WoW Radio as a music DJ, got a show called Blue Please about a month or so later, and it's at that point, once I'd finished university, that I took up a job in-game. I think perhaps there's this misinterpretation. Maybe back then, I don't think so anymore, but there was this misinterpretation that you got out uni, you get a great job. Nope, you get whatever job you can get to make sure that you can actually afford the rent, because suddenly you have no student loan anymore, no supports, like, I have no money, oh god, need to work somewhere, so I got a job in-game. And I worked there for about 2 years, and I was still doing WoW Radio at the time, very much as a hobby. I quit my job to go and live in the US in 2007, got into the immigration BS late 2008, had to go back and live into the UK, and started working temp jobs to make sure the family actually had enough money to survive. And that involved, at one point, doing data entry for the post office on the night shift. Oh, God. Never do that. Never. It's horrible. Yeah, so I ended up doing that just because it's whatever I could get at the time. I didn't have a huge amount of work experience, and that was a real problem, and it continues to be a real problem in the UK and probably the US as well. The degree doesn't make much of a difference anymore, and that's a sad thing indeed. But I then went and worked at a few other office jobs and then managed to get a full-time job in 2009 at financial advisory, doing mostly admin work and being a marketing assistant, which was okay. You know, I think I was driven to the point of insanity by the end of that, but in 2010, January 2010 is when I wrapped up WoW Radio and started CynicalBrit.com. I started doing new podcasts, and I also began StarCraft video content when the beta for Wings of Liberty came out. In July 2010, I lost my job at the financial advisory, along with about half the staff, thanks to the recession and the fact that the company wasn't doing all that well. And since I wasn't making any money anymore, I began doing World of Warcraft beta content, because that is exactly when the Cataclysm beta started, which is weird, things lined up like that. And I did that on YouTube to drive traffic to the website in order to make some ad revenue while I was looking for another job. In August, I was offered partnership, and I kept looking for jobs because while I accepted the partnership, I had no idea how much money this was going to make or whether it would even be viable beyond a few months. And then I received my first paycheck on October 2010, and I stopped looking for jobs and took this seriously as a full-time thing. So yeah, up until the actual start of CynicalBrit.com, I wasn't making any money from podcasting, and up until August 2010, I was never making any serious money. You know, we'd make a little bit of ad revenue here and there, but you could never do that as a full-time job. So there you go, folks. There's some questions for this AMA that was done over on r/CynicalBrit. I'll continue doing this because people seem to enjoy the content. If you do have any suggestions for improvements, by the way, to the format, then by all means, do let me know in the comment section, and I will have one of my staff look through it and pick up the good stuff, because I don't know, something feels lazy about this. How can I improve it? How can I make it better? Do let me know, and I will see what I can do. Thank you very much for watching, and of course, thank you very much for your support of the first episode. The number of likes and favorites for that episode was astonishingly high. And as cliche as it sounds, yeah, likes and favorites do help people out. They do. That's just the nature of the YouTube system. I'm annoyed that it's even there, but it pushes you higher in the search rankings and stuff like that. So if you feel like clicking like, by all means. If you feel like clicking dislike because you didn't like the content, then I'm cool with that too. It's all good. Thank you very much for watching, folks. I shall see you next time.